Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Jewell, and I'm with the Career Technical Education Foundation. Today, I am interviewing Norman Sheehan, who is the owner of Norman Sheehan Insurance Agency, LLC. Now, Norman, I'm looking forward to this conversation because when you and I were talking before, you had mentioned that insurance is not necessarily one of those types of careers that someone would, think about pursuing necessarily when they're in, say, a high school exploration or even post-secondary. And you would, I think your words were, you don't find insurance careers kind of find you. But I kind of want to turn that on its head a little bit and talk about why you specifically like the insurance industry. And maybe we can kind of turn that around a little bit and showcase that industry as something that is attractive to the folks that are exploring careers right now. So that being said, tell us what it is that you do in insurance, kind of like what a day looks like for you, and really what you love about your career.
Well, in insurance, there are many different fields of insurance, and there's property casualty, commercial, workers' comp, your state farm, farmers, kind of personal lines, life insurance, financial planning, health insurance, medical insurance and the field that I'm in is actually health insurance. And the markets I work in within that industry are the small groups, which are employers with less than 50 employees, individual plans, which is your Cover California plans, and Medicare. And those are the three markets I work in. And that industry, specifically within the insurance industry, that is one where I have not met anyone who actually wanted to be an insurance agent. It just sort of they just kind of, or actually I've met one person, but it takes a special personality to go into this industry. And I think you're asking, well, what does it take to be in this industry? And it's you have to have a license. It's been about 20 years since I've gotten one, so I wouldn't be able to tell you all the guidelines on it. But what I like about this industry, this specific part of the industry, is you spend your day problem solving. If you don't get that paperwork out properly, if you don't select the right plan, or help the client select the right plan, that person doesn't have access to healthcare. Mm-hmm. When that person has a problem, you have to go through. In our industry, there's a lot of interaction with the insurance companies as well as the providers. So when that person doesn't have health insurance or doesn't have or has a problem, you have to identify who you have to call to solve it. And it's probably one of the more rewarding aspects of my industry is just that ability to just go in there and make connections with people, solve problems, make a difference in a person's ability to access healthcare. There are, in these three markets that I work in, there are actually almost three separate professions. In the small group or employer market, this is where your client is actually an employer, another company, another small business owner. They're providing health insurance, and with that health insurance, they have to provide a series of a fairly large number of other compliance types conditions that go on with a small employer. Most small employers are just not even aware of what they're required to have. And so as a health insurance agent, I am able to go in and help identify the compliance issues that my client has to have, help them set these programs up, employer manuals, ERISA documents, et cetera. Help the employer figure out how to get the most out of their benefit dollars that they can, and then work with the employer's employees in selecting the right plans and problem solving. And that's it's an industry almost in its own right, but you just sort of grow into that one. In the individual market, that's cover California. You're working with people who do not have access to insurance through their employer, and that one is requires an understanding of tax law, income taxes.
Hmm.
How much money someone makes determines what their tax credit is. Um, what plan is in their best interest, and you spend it's not uncommon to be working with accountants and financial planners to figure out what is the best plan for that person. Then in the Medicare market, you help them figure out which is the best medical plan that would be for them, and the right drug plan or the right Medicare Advantage plan. And you have to do it in such a way that you're not interfering with that law of asking questions. So it's a challenge, but it's something that I enjoy doing. And my book business is sort of it's lopsided. Most of my income comes from small group, but it's being able to work in all three of those markets enables me to help. It makes me better at each market because I'm aware of all three markets.
Hmm.
I hope I answered your question all right.
Yeah, you absolutely did. It sounds like insurance is an industry where if you're analytical, you're organized, but also you're a problem solver, you can do really well. But you also said something that speaks to me about that I hear a lot about when people talk about what they love about their career. It's them being able to help others. And I can imagine, especially when you're dealing with something like someone's healthcare, how important that is to them or to the employees of a company that you might be working with. I mean, that's something that is life changing and could be life and death, right? And so I can imagine how that can be just this rewarding thing that you have. I do want to go back to those skills a little bit. I had mentioned, just based off of what it sounded like, analytical, organizational, and problem-solving skills. But what other kinds of skills should one possess in order to go into something like insurance? And this is going to be a two-part question: skills, but also, are there any sort of certifications that you might need, any degrees that you would need in order to go into being an insurance broker?
Well, I think let's go with the skills. I think probably one of the most important skills. Yes, you got to be analytical. You have to be a people person. You have to like people.
Yeah.
Most of us, it's an industry where when people start out, it's got a very, very high failure rate. But once you're in the business for a while and your renewable commissions are coming through, you can do pretty good. But the way you grow your business is by getting involved in the community. And so that's an extremely important part of it. People have to know that you actually care about them. They have to know you. And so that's an important skill in this industry. I'm not quite, and then I apologize. It's been, 30 years since I've taken my test. But my understanding is right now there's, when I first went in the business, I had a property casualty license and a health or a life license. And then that just sort of encompassed everything I sell. But I think there's about, right now, converted into around 5 or 6 licenses. And each one requires a separate test that you take with the Department of Insurance. You have to take some courses. I think they're all online nowadays. You pass it, you're in, you have your license. But the most important place to get your skill development actually is within professional organizations, working with other agents, learning the trade, being you continue education. There are some further degrees that one can get if they so are inclined. But it's a constant issue of learning, especially in this industry, which is rapidly changing. You just have to just stay on top of the changes taking place. For example, now we have the new Biden Act, which has increased the tax credit for people making over 400% of poverty. So now far more people qualify for a tax credit. All right. Well, that's, now that requires me to go back and look at the people who just did not go into cover California because it wasn't worth it, and go back and revisit that. These are the things that you have to look at on a daily basis. And I think another skill is, for an old guy like me, I'm the same age as Bill Gates. So computers have always been sort of a challenge to me. But technology, man, if you can't buy into technology, you're just not going to make it in this work or in this industry. Mm-hmm. It is so crucial. It's I think I spend almost $2,000 a month on technology, and it's the only way I can make it through the day. So it's that's very important. So you have to be technological. You have to be a person. And then you have to be able to be analytical. So it's kind of it keeps you busy, I guess.
Now, as my final question, I always like to ask for a piece of advice, because the students who are generally watching this video are high school age and they are exploring careers. With your experience, having gone through a career path, could you provide a piece of advice for the students that are watching this?
I think this is a better second career than first career. It's a career where, if you're, I don't know if someone who's 18 years old, unless they have a parent who's working in this industry, or, have to have some kind of stability behind yourself in order to get in here, stay in here, and survive. So, I would be looking at it as a second career, but I think also too, if you're tenacious, come on in. We need people who care about the community. I mean, that's there's never enough of those folks around, and it is a way to give to the community while making a good living. So, and I hope I'm not discouraging people, young folks, but it's a very high failure rate if you start out on your own. And so bottom line is on that is, if you don't have an in, all right, work in an insurance agency. It's see if you even like it. Mm-hmm. That might be another way.
I can imagine that networking and building up contacts is pretty critical in your line of work, and that is something that is really tough to do when you're first jumping into the workforce. Is to have that. Yet, like you say, as a second career, I can imagine that you would have built a contact list and a network that you can connect through. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Well, yeah. Norm, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today and giving us your journey and an insight into the insurance industry. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.